About 80 million people are taking drugs that I've invented here, but this could be the most important thing I've done. The molecule is called Endoxifen, and we're developing it for a number of states in breast cancer and actually following its biology into some of the rare diseases, rare pediatric diseases like Duchenne's muscular dystrophy and something called McCune-Albright syndrome.
All right, welcome back inside our proactive newsroom. And joining me now is Stephen Quay. He is the CEO of Atossa Therapeutics. And Stephen, it's good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Yeah, good to have you along. Excited to learn a bit more about what the company's been up to. I know it's been very busy the last little while. So before we get to that, maybe tell everyone a little bit about the company.
Okay, so I started Atossa Therapeutics about 15 years ago with a simple sounding but complicated process, which is to prevent breast cancer. Princess Atossa was the first woman in recorded history with breast cancer, and that's what we were started as. So this will be the seventh company I've founded. I've invented 7 drugs that are FDA approved, starting with the first drug when I was teaching at Stanford Medical School, gadolinium, used in MRI. So about 80 million people are taking drugs that I've invented here, but this could be the most important thing I've done. The molecule is called Endoxifen, and we're developing it for a number of states in breast cancer and actually following its biology into some of the rare diseases, rare pediatric diseases like Duchenne's muscular dystrophy and something called McCune-Albright syndrome in little girls.
Yeah, Stephen, how did you come up with this? What were sort of the things you were looking at that was already available for breast cancer specifically, and then thought, there's a different way to do this?
Yeah, so the first directed drug in any cancer was in breast cancer. It was the approval in 1977 of tamoxifen, which blocks estrogen that drives about 75 to 80% of breast cancer. So that drug was the first, biologically important drug in all of cancers and in breast cancer. But it's not actually active itself. So what we learned over the last 10 years or so was that when a woman takes it, most women, but not all women, will convert it to something called endoxifen, which is the active ingredient. And you also make 19 other things in your liver that can cause mischief. So we said, why give, a complicated a molecule like tamoxifen when you can give the pure drug endoxifen? So that's what we did. And that's where we started. And we're now about 6 years into the clinical trials here, and we're seeing the expected efficacy and maybe better efficacy, because I can get higher doses of endoxifen than you can with tamoxifen. But surprisingly, a very clean safety profile, which I might not have expected from a pharmacology point of view, but I now believe that some of the other 19 things that the liver makes when you take tamoxifen are causing mischief, and giving the pure single molecule that's effective cleans up the adverse event profiles for these ladies.
Yeah, you mentioned clinical trials. Where are you at as far as this is concerned?
So we've done multiple phase 2 clinical trials. So the clinical trials for your folks, there's 3 phases. Phase 1 is normal volunteers to get sort of the tolerance and to measure blood levels to see how it goes into the blood, goes out of the blood. Phase 2 is patients with the disease to see how it's effective and what the safety profile is in those patients who are actually sick. Phase 2 is used to design the final trial for FDA approval, which is called phase 3, where you identify with FDA's concurrence what's the endpoint that I'm going to go for approval, what's the side effect, what's the safety I need to measure. You get agreement on that, you do a phase 3, and you get your drug approved.
Okay. I know that I was reading on when I was researching the company that you're going to be speaking at the American Society of Clinical Oncology, or at least the presentation's going to be there. Obviously important to get peers interested and involved in this as well, I would say.
Oh, well, it is, and that meeting was actually a couple weekends ago in Chicago, and it was very effective, very well attended. We talked about both the clinical trial that we're doing that's centered at the Mayo Clinic called the Evangeline trial, which is in women with newly diagnosed breast cancer. Can we hit the cancer very early in 28 days by a tissue sample, and in 2 to 3 months by an MRI make the tumor smaller? And then we also reported that what we found in breast cancer is that a lot of times they will mutate and become resistant to endocrine therapy, which is kind of a bad situation. Endoxifen actually works in those mutated states. So that was the second paper that got a lot of interest at that meeting.
Absolutely. So let's talk about what's ahead. What should people know about the next 3 to 6 months? I know it's drug development, so it can take years, but I'm sure there's a lot of catalysts that will take you the rest of this year.
Absolutely. This is a catalyst-rich second half of the year. We're going to be putting together all of the trial work that we've done with I Spy, which is Dr. Laura Esserman, who's a surgeon out of UCSF, one of the 100 most important people in the world in Time Magazine 2016. So we've been doing for the last 6 years a number of trials in that space, from newly diagnosed low-risk cancers to newly diagnosed high-risk cancers in combination with Lilly's abemaciclib drug, to newly diagnosed cancers in premenopausal women, where you have to do something about the ovaries overproducing estrogen in response to therapy. So we're going to be putting together all of this trial data and beginning to think that we can talk to both the FDA about what would be the final approval process and to large pharmaceutical companies to help us with the journey. So typically a company like us would find a partner for the phase 3 trial and then for the marketing of the drug afterwards. And so that's the exciting work for the second half of the year. It's not expensive work because we spent the money already on the trial work. It's putting together the packages, it's getting the meetings and with the FDA and with big pharma as they're called. So that's pretty exciting times.
Absolutely. Well, we wish you good luck. Boy, such a need for it for sure. So, Stephen, thank you so much. Really great catching up with you, and we look forward to following your story. Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, there's Stephen Quay. He's the CEO of Atossa Therapeutics.